welcome everyone to our Thursday, May 18th, 2023 regular school board meeting. Thank you all for coming. I had a request from the public to ask board members to speak into the microphone so everyone can hear. And we will endeavor to do that. Do we have a motion to come out of closed session?
I move that the school board, having been in closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of the closed session.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Is there a motion for certification?
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, and now therefore it be resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion for certification signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Again, welcome everyone. Would you stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a motion from our closed session.
I move to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Davis, would you do the roll call, please?
Ms. Christina Boone,
Here.
Ms. Orwin Council,
Here.
Ms. Tanya,
Smith.
Ms. Tanya Smith, Mr. McQuarrie,
Present.
Mr. Hope,
Present?
Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Dr. Carter,
Present.
Ms. Powell,
Present.
Thank you. Citizens' time. We have one person signed up. It looks like Dora Finner. Is she present?
Good afternoon. Well, excuse me. Good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight I stand before you. First, I have a question, and I'm hoping that it can be answered. And that would be, there was a grant, from my understanding, that the City of Franklin School Division was using, and it was the ESSER grant. Could anybody explain what that grant funded? Some general things of what that grant funded?
about to respond, or citizen time, Mr. Holt, for just comment?
You may comment.
Okay. So the ESSER grant is used for when COVID occurred, and it was to address primarily learning loss. And so that's the short version of the ESSER grant. So it's to address learning loss. So extra money was given to each district in accordance with their population.
Okay, understood. Well, that brings me to a concern that I have tonight. I have been in the city of Franklin for 45 years. I'm a graduate of Franklin High School. I have 2 children, one that's getting ready to graduate. And it was brought to my attention that this grant that I spoke upon was funding for one of our assistant principals. And due to the grant ending, that position would no longer be able to be filled, which really saddens my heart, because if you knew the individual that was in that role, he really, really has come until Franklin High School, and he has touched students, staff. His presence is really known, and if he leaves because of the fund, because there is no longer any funding, well, there are going to be a lot of kids really hurt. And let me just tell you, and just so you know, I also work for, I'm sure you know, I work for the division as well. If you would like, I have some letters from some colleagues of mine that wanted to really express to the board as well what this gentleman brings to the table. Today, I had to sub a class because we were short. And I was looking for the student, and he happened to be on that hallway, and I was like, have you seen the student in question? And he said, well, matter of fact, I have. He's in my office, because I called him on the phone. He's in my office right now. There is a student who has a senior presentation. He's very nervous, and he wanted me to listen to see if I was touching on all of the points. As we all know, the exit and that presentation, that's a graduation requirement, so of course you would be nervous. So anyway, it's just so many things that I could really talk about. I live in the city, and I have a young black male. We definitely need some people who really care, and this man drives in. He drives in, he doesn't live in the area, and for me to be in this area this long and to see someone coming into the area that actually cares for our youth, who wants to help them excel in education and just be productive young men and women, that saddens my heart that because of a grant, he might not have funding to be able to return back to the position that is really needed. I'm not sure if you would like, but I do have letters for you guys to pass around just to read some of the things that were shared, that they wanted to share with you. It's just been several times where, we have the 8th graders over there now, and that can really be challenging because they're younger, and so they're trying to get in the groove of, your teenager, they're trying to get into the groove of how they're fighting with going through puberty and trying to learn. It's just a lot of things. So we have to call upon him, just like all the rest of the administrators. But he has a common spirit to be able to direct them. Well, hey, let's just think about it a different way. So if there is anything that could be done to make sure that this, of course you say there's no more funding for this. If there could be anything that could be done to find funding to be able to keep him, I think that's something that our community, our school board, that's something that we need. don't have many people that are coming into our community welcoming, I would say what we call some of our problematic kids. I'm just being honest. I'm a parent. I see a lot of kids. Everybody is not raised the same. Everybody doesn't come from a two-parent home. My son is a product right now of a single parent. And if you don't have somebody that can step in the absence of when the parent is not there to maybe motivate them or drive them to do something different, they're going to fall behind the wayside. If you open out paper, if you just listen, look at social media, every time you turn around, there's always something happening in little old Franklin. So if we can get their attention in school and maybe direct them to something positive, it would be a great outcome. I'm not sure of the protocol. I'm not sure if you would like to see some of the letters that
Yes, I can take those.
Okay.
Do you want them back?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Another incident. So I think it was back in December. The kids were really upset. I don't know if it was December or if it was January, but earlier this year, they had a classmate that was killed tragically. And a lot of the young men, they were in such an uproar, they didn't even want to let the authorities do their jobs. They wanted to take matters into their own hands. I want to make whomever pay for what they did to my friend. I can remember right this date, right now, just like it was yesterday. He immediately went into the classroom where some of those that were just outright. And he said, listen, young men, we got to do something better. We got to break the cycle here. And he just started to talk to them and to calm them. And they're still in school right now. And that right there is a blessing. This man, now I live in Franklin. I don't make every game, but he's at every game. He's at a lot of the games, all the activities. He's always there. This is the type of people that we need. When I was going to school in the 90s, most of our educators lived in the city. So, you know, they had a common interest. They cared. But when you get somebody that's coming in and showing love and wanting to elevate, that's a blessing. So I just ask that you would take into consideration if there is any way that funding can be accommodating to be able to save his position. I really do think that's something that we should really think about. It would be a great investment for Franklin High School, for the community, for our children at large.
Thank you. Our next item is a public hearing on our budget for next year. The city has given us a level budget, which means same amount as we got last year. The state has not determined our final budget figure yet, but the purpose of the public hearing is to give you an opportunity to speak to us on your budget priorities. So I will open that and invite anyone to come to the microphone to comment on our budget for next year. I have to ask that 3 times, so is there anyone that would like to come speak on their budget? Last time. Anyone like to speak on our budget? That ends the public hearing on the budget. Thank you.
Mr. Holt, I would like to welcome our new finance director, Ms. Tracy Morrison, and she will talk about the budget for next year. So please welcome Ms. Tracy Morrison.
Dr. Carter, School Board, good evening. I'm going to be talking to you about the fiscal year 2023 results to budget and also the FY24 budget as it is stated. All of the figures that I'm going to give to you tonight come straight out of our RDA software with no modifications. So the first slide depicts our general fund, which is budgeted at $17.1 million, and to date through April, we have spent $12.4 million of that. And that's approximately 72% of our budget. The $4.7 million may look like a large variance, but keep in mind that we have May and June salaries and benefits, and we have ongoing operational expenditures such as utilities and ongoing maintenance that will eat up this variance. Next slide, please. This slide shows everything else. We start with federal grants. We had grants of $9.1 million, and we've spent $2.6 million. And you'll be hearing a presentation later on in this meeting about where we are with our grants. Moving along to textbook fund, we were budgeted $71,000, and we've spent $3. And the nutrition fund, we were budgeted $884, and we have spent $827. So that is the fiscal year 2023 results to budget. And I'm now going to talk about the FY24 budget. Next slide, please. Okay, now this is the general fund including grants. Fiscal year 2024, you can see is budgeted for $19 million. The textbook fund goes up to $129,000, and the nutrition fund comes up to $907,000. So this grand total of $20,068,103 ties with what the city is showing for us right now. Next slide, please. As was mentioned earlier, we are awaiting our final state calculator tool for average daily membership, and that will impact our final state funding. Once that comes in, we will need to amend our budget accordingly. And lastly, we are anticipating a decline in eventual elimination of pandemic-related funding. That needs to be expended by the end of 2024. So my recommendation at this time is to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget as presented. Next slide. Are there any questions?
Do we have a motion before questions?
I have a quick question. I'm just really impressed that we were under budget in all those different categories. That's commendable. I guess that's not a question, that's a statement.
Budget monitoring continues on a daily basis, especially when it comes to projecting salaries and benefits and monitoring the ongoing necessary expenses.
Could I ask a question on the federal spending for 2023? Can we go back to that slide?
One more. Yes. This is general fund only, excluding grants, textbooks, and nutrition.
Okay, the next slide. I'm sorry. The following slide. I just had a question on the federal grants, the variance of approximately $7 million. Is that money's yet to be spent this year? Is that what that means? Am I understanding that correct?
We constantly monitor our grant expenditures and submit reimbursements accordingly. And so at any one point in time, there's expenditures we have made that have not been reimbursed by grants. And our goal is to get to where we're just monitoring 1 year's grant at a time without the rollover. So the answer is yes.
So these are like...
It's available should we have the expenditures.
Oh, okay. All right. This was available. Okay. Well, actually, a follow-up question then. The categories underneath the left column where it says total revenue, it starts at instruction, administrative, and transportation. Those are the categories those funds are available in?
Yes, the major functions. And most of our grant funds are spent by far on instruction, closely followed by facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think what is amazing is Ms. Morrison has only been here since May 1st, and she's still coming back and pulling it all together, and Dr. Carter did that for a while, and all kinds of people. Angie Edwards back there, a bunch of people, so it's a great effort. Do we have a motion to approve the budgets as presented?
I move to approve the budget as presented.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a second, sir, I'm having a little problem with my mouse.
There were a couple items before that on our agenda related to payables for March and payables for April. I believe the board has already seen those. Does anyone have any questions on those?
Okay, so basically what you see here in the consent agenda is race to the GED revenue increase, $137.67. Again, you see this. The next item is continuing education, revenue increase for $30,000. Then you see RIPE revenue increase, which is $110,000. Then you see the Title III revenue increase of $2,227.83. So I'm making a motion to the board to accept the revenue increase and the adjustments to the budget.
Do we have a motion?
How do we word that? I move to accept the superintendent's request
For a budget adjustment.
for a budget adjustment.
Yes, and you see on the next slide, Ms. Council, the justification for the budgets, just to bring clarity.
Thank you, Arwen. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion carries. Superintendent's report. Dr. Carter.
All right, thank you. As we continue to tidy up, board, we are still undergoing getting the Connex storage units out of SP Morton. And so once again, we are down to 2 now. And as we were at 5, and now we're down to 2. And this is, again, cleaning out the Connex, the excess storage. And as I explained to the board before, it is not in condition, unfortunately, to give away. It was mold and poorly damaged. It cannot be used. So I'm requesting the board to dispose of these materials and also get rid of the Connex box, which we're paying roughly, I believe, over $100 a month in rental space. So we want to continue to get rid of all our excess waste and also tighten up our budget for fiscal responsibility. So I'm asking for a motion to dispose of these items.
Do we have a motion to approve Dr. Carter's Connex inventory request?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Carter.
All right. Next slide, Mr. Okay, Dr. White. And team.
She's got a whole crew.
Good evening again, Board, Superintendent, community members. Tonight, I am presenting with a team. We are your grant team, and each of us are assigned to monitor and write certain grants. So tonight, we're going to share with you the grants that we write, monitor, and what the grants are used for. So I have the pleasure of starting. All right, so I'm responsible for Title II, and the purpose of Title II is to improve our teacher performance and our performance of our administrators. In the previous year, the grant was for $94,956. We're anticipating just a bit more, but we always start with level funding, so you'll see that we're anticipating we will budget based on that $94,000. So what do we do with that grant? Our priorities for that grant, of course, is to decrease our vacancies and increase our teacher retention. So we utilize that grant for tuition and reimbursement. We have teachers that participate in Phoenix University. We have some teachers that are a part of our Camp Community College. We also use it for assessment fees. We pay sign-on bonuses. We offer incentives, referral incentives, and those types of things. And then a portion of the grant is used for our grant specialist salary. And so who partners with us through this grant? We partnered with VDOE, our CERN, again, Camp Community College, University of Phoenix, Liberty University, Old Dominion University, and Virginia State. So that's our Title II grant. That grant is not a competitive grant. That's a federal grant that we get each year. So any questions about Title II? Okay. Guys, I'm so used to bringing my own. Am I swiping? Oh, you're doing it. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. I thought it was my magic finger. Thank you. All right, so up next is the SIG grant. The SIG is our school improvement grant, and we have that grant because of SP Morton and where our scores are. So the purpose of that grant is to provide resources so that we are able to implement sustainable strategic improvement. So the purpose of that grant is to raise our students' achievement scores. This was our first year for the grant. We received the grant at $244,459. Priorities, of course, increased student achievement. So programs, we have our School Improvement Conference, and that is a requirement for anyone receiving that grant. We offer professional development, and the professional development that we offer with that grant has to be evidence-based. And so we have a evidence-based best practice that the VDOE assigns, and we choose certain strategies from those evidence-based best practices. We also use that grant for assessment, some assessment reimbursements, particularly in the area of reading. Our goal is to have all of our teachers understand the science of teaching reading. So specifically for that purpose, we also can purchase material and supplies, and of course, we can participate in training sessions. Partnerships are very similar to our partnerships for the Title II, the VDOE, our CERN, and CERN is actually the William & Mary. So they have a training department within William & Mary, and our new administrators, new teachers can often, even new assistant superintendents, because there's a session for me as well, can participate in CERN and receive additional training. We also partner with the University of Virginia for the reading on PALS, and then the Southern Regional Education Board. And that's the company that does the School Improvement Conference. Next slide. Any questions about SIG or the School Improvement Grant? So the next grant is our Continuing Education Support Grant, and this grant is a competitive grant. So we applied for this grant in 2021, and the grant was awarded at $99,960. And you can see across the years how the grant is supposed to be spent. First year, $14,000. Next 2 years, $42,000. So the purpose of that grant is to increase the number of licensed teachers within the division. So The grant is used for tuition payments, for assessment payments, so that our teachers can become fully licensed. And again, the partnership is very similar to our Title II partnership. So we partner with University of Phoenix, Camp Community College, Liberty, and Old Dominion. So very similar to Title II, but there are some divisions that need a little bit more. And so we were one of those divisions, so we were allowed to write this competitive grant, and we won we were awarded the grant. Next slide. And then we have a few incentive grants, and these are all the competitive grants. So we have the RIPES, the RARs, and we have the Transportation Drivers Incentive Grant. So RIPE stands for, what is it? It's the Recruitment Incentive for Public Education Grant. The RARs is Recruitment and Retention Support Grant. And then, of course, the Transportation or Drivers Grant is used for us to recruit bus drivers, okay? So the priority again is to recruit teachers and drivers to our division, and it is an incentive grant. So the money is just used to pay stipends. The RARS grant was $30,000, and that is awarded to new teachers that were hired before July 15th. The RIPE grant was $110,000, and that was awarded for teachers who were hired between July 16th and November 15th. And then the transportation grant was for $29,000, and that was awarded to drivers, and also an incentive for those drivers that stayed with Franklin City Public Schools. Next slide. My last grant that I manage is the Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Grant, or the Virginia Tier Systems of Support Grant. And the purpose of this grant is, if you recall earlier, we talked about that red light, green light, yellow light, and the interventionist. So the purpose of this grant is to assist our teachers in tiering our students when it comes to academics, social, emotional, or behavior. And so we did receive a grant for $14,000. This is a competitive grant. And this grant, the priority again is to implement a multi-tiered system of support in the schools in all areas. Activities, we're looking at PBIS, which is our positive behavior intervention and support. We're looking at social, emotional learning, and then, of course, improved student achievement. Our partners are our TTAC, and that's our Tidewater Training and Technical Assistance Center, and those are there's one at Old Dominion, one at William & Mary, and one at Virginia Commonwealth University. Partner with Video E and also the Virginia Systems of Support. Any questions about the grants that I manage? All right, up next, I believe is Title, thank you.
Just a second, Miss Officer, I'm coming.
Good evening, Dr. Carter and school board members. I will be discussing with you not necessarily grants that I manage, but grants that we have here in the school division to make you aware of the different grants that we receive, their purposes, and the things that we are doing with that funding. The first grant that I will talk about is the HVAC grant. This is coming from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. It's a ventilation improvement grant, and as it states, it is to improve the ventilation when we were returning to in-school instruction from COVID. That grant was used to purchase S.P. Morton's cooling tower and JPK's air purifiers. No personnel were hired with that grant. It was just strictly to provide the necessary materials and equipment to make the air safe for our students. Okay. ESSER 2 is funding that came under the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations. This grant was also in response to reopening the schools to have them safe, healthy, and to recover learning loss. Our priorities, again, learning loss, health and safety, and social distancing. Some of the programs and activities were recruitment and retention, grow your own, refurbishing bathrooms, replacing drinking fountains, purchasing modular classrooms. The personnel that is supported in this grant, custodians, school counselor, assistant principals, dean of students, hall monitors, licensure lead stipends, bus drivers, and teacher assistants. Falling up under this grant was the bus driver incentive grant, and no problem. Dr. White already addressed this grant. ESSER 3 is the ARP ESSER, falling under the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. ESSER 3 falls under the same pattern as ESSER 2, addressing learning loss, health and safety, and social distancing. Some of the programs and activities that we are funding under ESSER 3 are recruitment and retention again, summer schools, attendance monitoring, again, refurbishing bathrooms, replacing drinking fountains, modular classrooms, and enrichment Fridays. Personnel that is supported under ESSER 3, truancy officer, tutors, federal programs coordinator, assistant principals, social workers, custodians, and enrichment Friday support staff. Title III is our language instruction for English learners and immigrants. The priorities is to increase our language proficiency of our English learners, or L students. The funding that we received this year was $2,145.17. Programs and activities that we support with this is just professional development for our ESL teachers and purchasing materials for a language acquisition program. The personnel that is supported in this, the grant specialist who is partially funded through this title program.
How many English learners do we have in our district?
We have 10.
Okay. And what's the variety of languages?
We have Vietnamese, we have Arabic, and we also have Spanish. Okay. Title V, Part B, Subpart B, Rural and Low-Income School Program. Our priorities for Title V is to provide funding to support rural and low-income schools, to provide supplemental services for those students. In this year, we received $25,712.82. Our priorities were to increase and maintain overall SOL pass rates for English, math, science, and history, increasing the graduation rate, and then getting overage undercredited students back in their correct grade level. This year, that grant was focusing on our high school at Franklin High School, as Franklin High School did not receive Title I funding. So this grant was specifically geared towards supplementing Franklin High School with their summer SOL Academy and their 4-credit summer school. The personnel also in this was the staffing for the SOL Academy and 4-credit summer school, and also the partial funding for the grant specialist. Perkins 5, Strengthening Career and Technical Education for 21st Century. Again, this is a supplement to the state funding that we receive for career and technical education at the high school. This year, we received $48,882.38. The priorities are to establish and maintain career and technical student organizations, improve participation in work study, and support students in special populations. The programs currently at the high school are culinary arts, marketing, nursing, criminal justice, computer information, and business. Some of the activities that we have within that grant are to have field trips to colleges and businesses in the specific program areas, provide professional development for the staff, and to establish business partnerships. Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, AFLA. This year, we received $24,908.41. Our priority is to assist adult students to acquire basic skills to obtain their GED. Mr. Dissy Cole has a day program, evening program, and the duration is roughly between the months of August to May. The personnel that is supported with this grant is a program facilitator and a data manager who is one and the same. 1 day instructor and 2 evening instructors.
Where are these classes being held?
What is the,
The classes are at camp.
okay, yes.
At camp?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Race to GED and GAE are also programs that fall up under there that help support the same basic priorities and programs. With the funding that we receive for that is $1,099.10, and that's the GAE. And under Race to GED, we receive $4,000, and those allocations are geared strictly to providing the instructors, the day instructors and the evening instructors' salaries.
What is GAE? The acronym?
General Adult Education.
Okay. Is that pre-GED or post-GED?
That I do not know.
It's pre.
Okay.
Pre-GED, thank
Below
you.
9th grade level.
Thank you. Thank you.
ISAEP is the Individual Student Alternative Education Plan. This grant is a $7,859 grant. The priority of this is for students to obtain the foundational skills necessary to prepare for successful entry into post-secondary education and the workforce. These would be students who are over 16 or over the age of 16 who would need to receive the high school equivalent credential to successfully matriculate into a college or career pathway. And these programs are provided through online learning. They receive counseling services, and the personnel that is supported with this grant is a program facilitator. VISTA is the Virginia School Screening Testing for Assurance. The purpose of the VISTA program was to provide support for COVID-19 testing in K-12 schools to comply with reopening schools under the CDC's guidance. These funds provided screening testing to help keep students safe during school hours. The program activities, there was a testing division coordinator and a testing nurse hired, purchasing supplies, and then the purchase of portable HEPA fans. The personnel was the division testing coordinator and the testing nurse or the clinical support rolled up in one. Okay, and I will segue to Ms. King.
Good evening, Dr. Carter and board members. So this is the special education grant. Section 611 is for our pre-K through 12th graders. And for this school year, we got $326,320. And we really wanted to ensure that our teachers were using evidence-based curriculum and that our students got to access the general education curriculum and benefit from it. So a couple things that we purchased with some of the funds: the Wilson Reading Program, which is an evidence-based reading program. Some of our kiddos are going to Grays and Acres for Therapeutic Writing Center on a weekly basis, and we participated in the Special Olympics event in collaboration with Suffolk Public Schools this year. The personnel that were funded under this part were 2 special education teachers and 6 teacher assistants. And then the 619 is for our preschool kiddos with disabilities. We got $16,077. We want to ensure that they are also using evidence-based curriculum. So we purchased the creative curriculum, which is supported by VDOE, and we also purchased new outdoor equipment that's accessible for all students. No personnel funds were used for this part of the grant. That's it for me.
I have a general question, just while she's getting the slides ready. These grants, are they included in that overall budget number that was mentioned earlier? Okay. These are subparts. Got it.
Good Good evening, Dr. Carter, Mr. Holt, members of the board. So I have the opportunity to manage our largest entitlement grant by far, and that is our Title I grant. Title I was established by the federal government to support students with in poverty, to make sure that they had access to quality education. And our current funding is about $850,000. As we plan ahead to next year, we're anticipating an increase, but in terms of what we're putting into the application, we're moving forward with level funding because we know that we'll receive at least that. There are a couple of changes as it pertains to Title I. For the past several years, we've had many waivers that we have been able to utilize. As we come out of the pandemic, those waivers are going away. So we're taking a fresh look at data, which is always a good idea. And in doing so, what we're going to be able to do moving forward, we're including Franklin High School as a Title I school. So now Franklin High School will have access to this funding. What that's going to help us do in terms of instruction is to utilize people across the entire district. Previously, we really had a focus on the elementary school and the middle school. As Ms. Austin said, we utilized that title fund, that rural education grant, to help meet the needs of Franklin High School. We'll be able to have some conversation about how that will look as we move forward. So really our priorities are the same. We're continuing to focus across content areas, and now we're going to be able to do that across all three schools. So we are looking to continue funding curriculum specialist, reading specialist, paraprofessionals, a professional development mentor coach, a parent and family engagement specialist, a portion of the grant specialist, and remediation and enrichment staffing. And this really is a preview to what you'll see at your next work session, where all of our grants, all of our federal grants will be presented. And what you'll see in that really is a focus on people over programs, because we really believe that having the right people on staff is going to help to move our students. Title IV. Title IV is what I refer to as the creative grant. There are three funding categories that we have in Title IV: well-rounded education, safe and healthy schools, and effective use of technology. And Title IV has a 20-20 something rule. So our current allocation is $62,000. We have to spend at least 20% on well-rounded education. We have to spend at least 20% on safe and healthy students, and we have to spend something on effective use of technology. Now, there are additional rules in that technology category, because whatever you set aside, you can only use 15% on infrastructure. So it really is about targeting professional development for the effective use of the technology that we already have, as opposed to purchasing additional technology. That is one of the blessings of the funds that we've received from the pandemic. We're now one-to-one. So now we need to make sure that we're utilizing the technology that we have. So we do fund a portion of an accreditation specialist position. So that is someone on staff who really takes a very close look at the work that we're doing through school improvement. We also have a person on staff that is funded as a student support monitor. Historically, this has had kind of the pupil personnel role as we keep a very close eye on our attendance rate. And then again, for effective use of technology, our focus is on professional development. And the last grant that I oversee is not an entitlement grant. It's not a federal grant. It's actually a local competitive grant. And that is from the Obici Healthcare Foundation. We receive a little over $14,000 to help fund our Stream in 3 curriculum. That's the curriculum that we utilize with our Bright Starts pre-K classrooms. And really the emphasis here is on monitoring the student and teacher interactions through the class observation tool, and making sure that the teachers have the materials that they need for that particular curriculum. So we fund those materials, some professional development for teachers, and a portion of the pre-K coordinator's salary and benefits. But again, with this, we have utilized the Streaming 3 curriculum for several years now, and we've been very fortunate that we have had the same teachers in this capacity. So the professional development for teachers really is fine-tuning rather than really building from the ground up. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You seem a little smarter than you did a month ago.
Yes, sir.
Is that because you got your doctorate?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is quite an all-star team here, and all of these grant funds allow us to better utilize our city money. Ms. Austin filled in like our finance director for a while. All four of you, phenomenal. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say, thank you for like laying it all out there and making it very clear. I will say that before I was on the board, I really didn't know how it worked. I kind of thought like there was this budget. I am a parent of students who are still in the division, but I kind of thought like school gets money and they can spend it. So why are they spending it here but not here? Like, why can't we just give teachers raises? And because I was a teacher in the division then. I mean, I'm still a teacher, but I'm not in the division anymore. But like, why? Right? And it's kind of like the envelope budgeting system, if you all are familiar with that. Like, you have this envelope, and there's money in that envelope. And once that money is gone from that envelope, like, there's no more money in that envelope. You can't buy anything else that's on that envelope, right? And I don't think that people really understand that. And you all have these grants that say, you can only spend this money for this, right? So if we're blessed enough to be able to give our bus drivers a bonus, for coming back or coming to us to work with us, and people want to, complain and say, well, daggone it, why couldn't you give it to our cafeteria workers? It's like, well, there wasn't a coupon in the Sunday paper that said that we could get a grant for the cafeteria workers, but there was one for the bus drivers, right? So we went ahead and we got that. Right? And so I don't think that the people necessarily understand that. But if they're watching this, or if they're out there, then they know that now. And we're doing the very best that we can with what we have, and we're trying to utilize all of what we have available. And sometimes the money comes to an end. Like, we had COVID money, and we used it for what we could, for a while we could, and then sometimes it goes away. But I appreciate that you all have looked for all that you could and used it for what you could, and that you reevaluated Franklin High School, because for so very long I wondered why we couldn't use those Title I funds for Franklin High School. It was only for the other two schools, and we were trying to make do to get Mr. Feltz and his school what we could. So I think that made it very clear where we could see, like, this is why we can only use this money for this. So thank you for that.
I agree with what she said.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, team.
Dr. Carter, my screen is frozen, my keyboard is frozen. I can't move forward.
Okay.
Can you dance and sing?
Is Mr. Spall here?
Do you need
In the back,
I got sugar.
I'll walk back.
Is there any way we can do it manually? It's just
He's
frozen.
hiding in the room back there.
Excuse me for walking quietly.
If you don't mind one out of order, I could.
Yeah, we could just do the,
He's here, never mind.
go to matters by the board.
Let me see if this.
Technology is a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
Maybe we can use some of those funds to fix it.
Is it in the right envelope?
So I'll have to stand here and do this.
I don't do that part. I just understood that there was an envelope.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Davis. Board, what you see here is our community fair, and I would like to thank the United Way. I also would like to thank Dr. Elliott, who spearheaded this initiative. It was held at SP Morrison, and as you can see pictures, we had over 26 vendors that showed up. What we need to push, however, further is parent participation. It wasn't necessarily all that we wanted, but from what I understand from the representative of the United Way, such an initiative has not been tried in over 5 years. So in the spirit and theme of parent engagement, we want to continue to keep those vendors that we have, and we want to continue, and we want to try again in the fall with new marketing strategies to get our parents to come out, because as you can see, our vendors were invested, and we want to keep them invested and keep them engaged, grow our partnerships with our community, and we also need, but however, we do need to strengthen our marketing strategies to get the word out to the community that all these services are here. We are filled with a lot of resources, and we want to bring it out to the community. So we got to do a better job in making sure that we market the resources. But we did get the vendors. It was a very heavy lift, and it's something that hasn't been tried in 5 years. So we're not going to let this go. We're not going to let the participation as far as parent turnout persuade us from not trying it again. So we'll do it again sometime in September.
What was the name of that event?
It's called a community fair,
Just community.
just a community fair. And so it was to foster parent engagement.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
You're up.
Can you go back to the salary comparison?
Yes. Dr. White?
So I was asked by the board to create a salary comparison for the board across the region. So Ms. Davis, can you scroll up?
Yes, I will. Just a second. Mouse is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Davis. And so as you can see, there were 10 divisions included in this comparison. I looked at
It's going all over the place. Hold on.
okay. So I looked at the salaries from Virginia Beach Public Schools, Surrey, Petersburg, Newport News, Suffolk, Isle of Wight, Greensville County, Sussex County, Southampton County, and of course Franklin City Public Schools. So what I did, I tried to look at the salary for 7 cities, because a lot of our teachers will leave and go to, a school within the 7 cities, the Hampton Roads area. And then I looked at the counties around this area. And so what I did is rank the schools or the salaries. And so if you look at the chart below, you'll see that we are actually 9th. We are ahead of Southampton County. Their starting salary, and these salaries are based on this school year. I can tell you that the majority of the divisions will be giving out a 5% raise, because most of them accepted the funds from Governor Youngkin last year. So they gave a 5% last year, and they're required to give another 5% this year. So we were in ninth place, just in front of Southampton. The other thing that I wanted to look at was our stipends. Which schools gave master stipends? How much did they give? Which schools gave the EDS stipend or plus 30? And then which divisions gave the doctorate stipend? So as you can see, there were no divisions that gave a one-time stipend except for Franklin. The only divisions whose stipend was less than ours was Petersburg Public Schools. And so, again, we kind of fell ninth place with the master stipend. Now, as far as doctoral stipends and the EDS stipends, there were school divisions that did not. For instance, Sussex, Greensville, Petersburg, Surrey, they did not give a plus 30. So, and then of course we don't give a plus 30, but the other divisions that were similar to ours, they did not give plus 30 either. And then there were two divisions, Greensville and Sussex, they did not give a doctoral stipend. And as of 2024, this upcoming school year, we will be given a one-time doctoral stipend. So any questions about this salary comparison?
Can you provide our, I don't know if you even thought about looking at it this way, but in terms of our size compared to the sizes of the other
I can do that. So what I tried to do was, one, look at 7 cities. And of course, those divisions are a lot larger than us. And then I tried to look at those counties that were surrounding us, like Alawite and, you know.
Because Southampton and Alawite, Southampton's got a larger high school, but I don't know the size of Surrey or
So I
Alawite.
believe Southampton has 5 schools.
Yes.
And I think that Alawite has 7. How many is it? 9 schools. But I can do that comparison and get it to you guys if you'd like, if you want to know the student size, because the ADM does make a difference with funding.
I'm just curious. That's what I was.
Sussex has 3 and is the same size as well.
Okay.
So Sussex and Surrey are the same size as we are. How does Surrey do it?
You know, I can do some research. I can try to find. I can
Well,
look at
I
your
can
board
tell
doc-
you a big factor, the money comes from tax revenue. And most of these counties that do better have industry. Like Suffolk, they've got stuff all over the place. Isle of Wight has all that stuff in Smithfield. Franklin really has nothing right now.
That makes sense.
The one that surprised me is Greenville.
And they're about to
Greenville
go
County,
to 3
but I know they have a Dominion power plant that just started up over there.
Okay.
So,
And they're in the casino.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
so that's it, the availability of industry and real estate to generate the tax money.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. And
This
again,
is really helpful.
if you need me to do some more research, just let me know. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was
Thank you.
good.
All right, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. Business by the school board, Mr. McCreary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Holt. I'll just keep it short. I want to make a motion to request the superintendent to submit a report to the board on the current status of parent engagement. That would include all our current opportunities for our parents and families to be involved in their children's education with the school division, and also identify any past programs that you may could learn about if you don't already know that were successful or had good turnout, but may have been discontinued for various reasons. I know maybe with COVID, some things might have were ceased, but I've heard on that front. I was told a few times about a reading night. This is just an example. A reading night, I believe, might have been monthly. That was well received I do know that, for example, we've started the PTA now, I believe maybe in 2 of our schools. So what I'm asking, well, this is my motion for the report, and if I have a second, then I can explain during discussion a little bit more.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Continue on.
Okay, so, thank you. So I'm not asking to start any new program. All I'm asking for is a report. So, two parts. One is to encourage our parents, our families, to continue to take ownership with your child of their education. I know it might sound trite to say that education starts at home, but that's the reality. And so I believe our division, we're continually promoting and encourage each other to do our best to educate your children. And I just feel like with our community, we're a small community, we really would benefit to have parents and families involved. So I would like to just maybe have a report publicly so we can identify all the various areas. I know we're doing a lot, but it would be nice to have that all in one report, I believe.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think this goes along with what Dr. Carter is already quite focused on. I think having parents involved is something that we've definitely talked about together. Moms and muffins and dads and donuts. I don't know if you've heard about that. That was done something 5 or 6, 7 years ago. It might have stopped because of COVID as well. I think that was well received. I used to attend it with my kids, and the reading night was weekly, actually.
Okay.
So anything we can do for parent engagement, I think, is great, and supporting our families and helping parents understand how important they are in the success of their children.
Right.
Any further comment? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Cursive writing, Ms. Boone, do you have any comments?
I didn't know this was up here, so I apologize. Ooh, you put me on the spot. Cursive writing. Oh, God, I don't know where to start. I was asking if it could be brought back only because I had the pleasure of this week with about 6 children, and we went over the Constitution, and it's in script. And out of the 6, 4 could not read it. Their age ranged from 6 to 12, 9 to 12. It's a part of our history. It's a part of the understanding of where it is, whether we agree with it or not. And that's just, speaking from a parent's point of view, a grandma, not just the board. We have children right now that write like doctors and don't have PhDs, MDs. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you get a prescription from the doctor, you don't halfway understand it, but when it gets to that pharmacist, they understand it. How can we have our children go to school with the writing that they have and the teachers not understanding it? I'm saying that because you have, unfortunately, some children that go to school and don't get that second chance while they're in school. They're not asked that same question. Or can you clarify this? So I was asking, I don't know if it's correct. I'm the new kid on the block, so I'm apologizing. If there can be a motion for it, or if it can be some type of something. I'm Carrie, someone help, Ms. Johnson, someone help me what I'm trying to say. But
It's funny that you looked at me. Okay, so actually, it's in the Virginia Standards of Learning for both grades 2 and 3 in the writing section. So I would just throw it out. Is Dr. Tyndall still here? Or okay,
She
there
is.
you are. So I would just say, like, if it just to like double check whoever is in like second and third grade, just to make sure that it is like actually there in their plans, in their that it's being followed. But it is in the standards of learning in Virginia. It's not something that has to be brought back. We just have to make sure that we're following it with fidelity. So you don't have to worry, and it's isn't lost. Yeah, it is actually still taught. But now your 6-year-old probably hasn't seen it yet, unless they're like a genius and they're already at that second and third grade level. But when they get to second and third grade, that is something that they're supposed
See,
to.
but that's the part that
Yeah.
bothered me because it went all the way to the 12-year-old. And where they can read, how can you read something when you can't understand it, or how can you read it because of the script? They blatantly could not read it.
Okay. So, and again, not an excuse, but the 12-year-old is in what grade now?
Probably about 6th or 7th.
6th or 7th. So we back that up how many years? And we're probably in that virtual learning part where they may not have gotten it. They may have just gotten it before they went out and then they missed it. So it is something that the other, even though it's not in the standards of learning for the higher grades, it probably is something that, the higher grades need to touch on. But we also have to realize that we're moving into an age of technology, and they're going to be doing a lot more on the screen. It is something that they should have to know how to sign their name, and they should be able to read, basic cursive. But that's not the wave of the future. They're not going to have to be doing as much writing. Like, they're not going to have to write reports when they go to college. That's not something that teachers are going to even accept anymore. But it is something that they are, like you said, they're going to have to know what it is when they see it. But they will be taught in second and third grade. So they will know that it's not scribble. Right? Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion. We can just ask for a status report on what we do now. Is that okay?
That's good. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, we'll re-examine what we're doing. And so thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Any other comments from board members? If not, is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you all.